Good afternoon, folks. It is Wednesday, October 1st, 2025. Tim Furnish, the Occidental Jihadist, back here with the Occidental Jihadcast. And this time it's still some daylight outside, so maybe that will shed a little more light on what I'm doing. I wanted to throw together quickly as possible, for someone as prolix as me, some comments on the Trump latest peace plan for the Palestinian-Israeli issue, generally referred to as the Gaza peace plan. And again, I think I have some good ideas about this, both in terms of things that I think that are positive from the Trump administration side, and also some criticisms. If you know my background, you know what I'm talking about. So let me preface this real quick by saying that in 2020, actually early 2020, the last year of the Trump 1 administration, they put out a very extensive peace plan for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I read the whole thing. It was quite long. If I remember, it was about 100 pages or so long. And I wrote an article about it at thestream.org called Hotels versus Missiles. The Palestinians chose poorly, to channel the Grail Knight, if I may, whom I'm increasingly looking at like in my seasoned years. Anyway, so take a look at that. February 7th, 2020, thestream.org, Hotels versus Missiles. The Palestinians chose poorly. That was a very, very, very extensive and, in fact, mainly economically business-based plan, really to help out the Palestinians, which, of course, they rejected out of hand because, as has famously been said, the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. So, that said, let's look at President Trump's latest plan, which, by the way, as of yesterday, which was September 30th, 2025, the president said that Hamas, which of course is the functional government of Gaza, not the West Bank, but Gaza, Hamas has, as Mr. Trump said, 3 to 4 days to accept the plan, which would mean he's basically giving them to this weekend. So, all right, so I have not done research on this. I've read through it. I've marked it. But I just, based on what I know and my intellect, channeling through my gut feelings about this, I'm going to comment on it, point by point. Number one, Gaza will be a de-radicalized, terror-free zone that does not pose a threat to its neighbors. Good luck. Hamas, of course, is what? Hamas stands for what? Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya, the Islamic Resistance Movement. It is the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. And while I take issue with some of my conservative brethren that the Muslim Brotherhood is terrorist, I think that ultimately the Muslim Brotherhood is not terrorist. It's a threat to many societies, but it is not a jihadist threat primarily. Some of its offshoots, in particular Hamas, are distinctly jihadist. And Hamas is jihadist and a terrorist threat. So to de-radicalize Gaza, you would, on one hand, on the surface level, you'd have to get rid of Hamas, which I'm not sure how that's going to happen, if at all. And secondly, more largely, you basically would have to de-Islamize Gaza. Yes, I know there are very few Orthodox Christians there, perhaps one church, but 98%, 99% of the Gazans are Muslims. Are they all terrorists? No, to harken back to one of my podcasts a bit back. Are all Muslims terrorists? Of course not. The vast majority are not. Does Islam, within its teachings, promote and allow for and sanction violence against non-Muslims, and for that matter, against other Muslims, more than any other religion on the face of the earth? Yes. So, de-radicalizing. For many years, I remember, again, when I worked at Special Operations Command as a counterterrorism analyst, that term would often come up, usually by well-meaning sops that had no idea what they're talking about. To de-radicalize means basically something that is beyond the ken of anybody, certainly in Gaza at this point. Number two, Gaza will be redeveloped for the benefit of its people. Well, that harkens back to what I was saying earlier, that very, very, very long Trump plan, economic-based plan to foster economic growth and tourism in Gaza and the West Bank from 2020. So that would take a great deal of economic development. The West Bank probably could do that. Gaza does not have a whole lot going for it, so I don't know how you get Gaza to be redeveloped for the benefit of its people in vacuo. I mean, really, by all sensible reasoning, Gaza should be part of Egypt, but Egypt wants no part of that. Why? Because Egypt hates the Muslim Brotherhood, as do most Muslim countries. So, mainly as political threats, but secondarily, again, with some of the subsets like Hamas as a jihadist threat, and of course Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which mainly operates, which is the even more violent branch of the Muslim Brotherhood among the Palestinians, but which operates mainly in the West Bank and not so much in Gaza. Number 3, if Israel and Hamas agree to the proposal, a lot of ifs in this thing. If Israel and Hamas agree to the proposal, the war will immediately end, with the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, halting all operations and gradually withdrawing from the Strip. I'm pretty sure Netanyahu would go along with that, but that's a big if. Number 4, within 48 hours of Israel publicly accepting the deal, all living and deceased hostages will be returned. I unfortunately think there will be more deceased than living hostages. And if Israel can hold its temper and its fire after that happens, I would be greatly surprised, but I'm sure they're capable of doing it. Question is, will Hamas actually own up and release all hostages, living and dead? And I think that's an open question. 5, once the hostages are returned, Israel will free several hundred Palestinian security prisoners serving life sentences and over 1,000 Gazans arrested since the start of the war, along with the bodies of several hundred, turn the page, the top of the page got cut off. Anyway, once the hostages are returned, Israel will free basically Palestinian security prisoners and over 1,000 Gazans arrested. I've been to Israel 3 times, and I remember on one of my trips there with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and I went with a bunch of college professors, and we learned we had demonstrations and meetings with Mossad and Shin Bet, and mainly Shin Bet and internal police, about how Israel deals with terrorism. And at one point, we visited a very large prison in Herzliya, I believe it was, which was run. It was a prison only for these sorts of political and terrorist threat prisoners. A lot of Hamas guys, PFLP, old PFLP, Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine, which is terrorist but was Marxist. Guys like that were in there. It was mostly Hamas guys though, and the prison was actually run, interestingly enough. The warden was a Druze colonel in the Israeli army. Anyway, I remember at one point talking to one of the guys there. One of the Hamas guys. My Arabic was much better than it is now because I've been using it more. But talked to the guy in Arabic, walking around carrying his Quran and his prayer beads. And I said, what's your goal for Israel? Our goal for Palestine is, of course, that Muslims and Christians and Jews can live in peace. Can you flesh that out for me? Well, Christians and Jews will have to live as dhimmis. Second-class citizens. Get on the back of the bus, mind your manners, don't get out of line. So, legalize discrimination, which of course is part of Islam, technically, although a lot of Muslim countries don't do it, some still do. Anyway, that's the kind of people they're talking about releasing. I don't know. Israel's going out on a limb to let those guys go. We'll see if that would come to pass, possibly. 6, once the hostages are returned, Hamas members who commit to peaceful coexistence, is there such a thing? Hamas members who commit to peaceful coexistence will be granted amnesty, while members who wish to leave the Strip will be granted safe passage to receiving countries. Okay. Again, I'm not sure such a Hamas member exists. And then, of course, they could practice taqiyya or kitman, which originally, that's the sanctioned lying to infidels concept in Islam, which started out as a 12 or Shia concept, but basically there's been a lot of research showing, and just read the news reports and pay attention to what's happening, you could tell that this concept of being allowed to lie to non-Muslims without any qualms has become part and parcel now of Sunni Islam, frankly. So I'm not sure if a Hamas member committed to that, you could believe them. So, number 7, once this agreement is reached, aid will surge into the Strip at rates no lower than the benchmark set in the January 2025 hostage deal. Yeah, that's kind of passive, isn't it? Aid will surge. Mistakes were made. Yeah, it's kind of like that, right? Where's the aid going to come from? Is the United States going to do that? The European community? The UN? Who's going to provide that? The Red Cross? The Red Crescent? I don't know. Be nice to know. Number 8, aid will be distributed without interference from either side by the United Nations and the Red Crescent, along with other international organizations not associated with Israel or Hamas. So again, it's saying who's going to distribute it. It's not really saying who's providing it. So maybe I'm nitpicking, but it would be nice to know that. It does. The article here does continue. This is the article. This was the. This was from This is the article about this peace plan from the Times of Israel. So they got their hands a few days ago, early on this. I think it was last week, before it formally came out. The text of this clause, the one I just read about aid being distributed by the UN and the Red Crescent, the text of this clause appears intentionally vague. You think? And seemingly leaves an opening for the continued operation of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, technically an American organization. Even if it was the brainchild of Israelis linked to the government, it was crafted to fit the Israeli government's prosecution of the war. Okay, I don't know much about aid distribution and channels, so I won't opine any more on that. Number 9, Gaza will be administered by a temporary transitional government of Palestinian technocrats. That's basically who runs the West Bank. That's the PA, the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, which is the post-peace process evolution, if you will, of the old PLO. So Palestinian technocrats who will be responsible for providing day-to-day services for the people of the Strip. This committee will be supervised by a new international body established by the U.S. in consultation with Arab and European partners. Well, again, a lot of ifs there. Is everybody going to agree to that? Depends on, it depends on what your definition of a Palestinian technocrat is. Okay, I promise, no more Bill Clinton. Palestinian technocrats, okay. So I assume that probably implies PA. It certainly means non-Hamas. And it does say the next page, of course. This is the U.S. plan's first mention of the Ramallah-based PA. Well, yeah, exactly, that's who that is. Point 9 appears to borrow heavily, the one I just read, Point 9 appears to borrow heavily from former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair's plan for ending the war. Oh, well, it's really deep then. He couldn't get Starmer to come up with a plan. He needs a peace plan for Britain, doesn't he? Number 10, an economic plan will be created to rebuild Gaza through the convening of experts. Oh, there we go, experts. Yay. Through the convening of experts with experience in constructing modern Middle East cities. Like who? Where? I mean, Dubai, UAE. Who are we talking about there? Because I've been to Cairo. Those guys didn't have a whole lot of experience. Maybe the ones that did Istanbul. Okay. Number 11, an economic zone will be established with reduced tariffs and access rates to be negotiated by participating countries. So number 11 is basically a one-sentence summary of that 80, 90, 100-page thing that I mentioned that I wrote an article on from the plan that the Trump administration came up with in 2020, early 2020, again, which you can read at thestream.org. It's called Hotels versus Missiles, which was actually quite a good plan. But again, the Palestinians did not have sense to accept it. Number 12, no one will be forced to leave Gaza, but those who choose to leave will be allowed to return. So I have a question mark with that. So does that mean they can leave Gaza and then come back? Now, I've not been to Gaza. I've been to Israel 3 times. I've been to Beersheba down in the south, and I've been to Ashkelon, which is near there, and that is just a hellish part of the country. And even in Israel, it's pretty, topographically and climactically unpleasant. And again, I've never actually been in Gaza. I've just heard it's basically a hellhole. So if you were allowed to leave, why would you want to come back? So moreover, Gazans will be encouraged to remain in the Strip and offered an opportunity to build a better future. So, okay. I mean, I granted that we really, I think that the whole conflict between Israel and Hamas, in terms of reporting, is very much like the war between Russia and Ukraine, although much smaller, of course, and the bloodshed is much, much less. But in terms of reporting, I've often remarked to people, and most people have agreed with me, and I don't think this is anything particularly brilliant on my part, but it's like we just don't know who to believe. Nobody reports on this fairly. I mean, when you're talking about that, the international press is, for the most part, anti-Israel. Just like in the Ukraine-Russia war, the international press is just pretty much cheerleading for Ukraine. Not to say that those aren't the aggrieved partners, but it would be nice to get actual accurate information about what's going on, and we just don't seem to ever get that. When you say Gazans will be encouraged to remain in the Strip and offer an opportunity to build a better future there, how much of their infrastructure, what I was getting at is how much of that infrastructure is left. So, I mean, look, I'm a supporter of Israel. I've been there 3 times. I've been asked to speak twice. I've spoken by invite at 3 different Israeli universities: Beersheba University, Hebrew University, and Haifa University. There was one other. I can't remember what it was. But I've been invited to speak by people in that country at various institutions there. And I'm quite pro-Israel. But even I think that what they've been doing in the Gaza Strip is too much. I don't know how you build a better future when the buildings are all leveled. So, number 13, Hamas will have no role in Gaza's governance whatsoever. Okay, we'll see if that flies. I mean, way back years ago, and I forget the exact date, when Hamas won the election, was it 06? When Hamas won the election there, I mean, they did, I think they won with a plurality. If I remember correctly, it was like 47, 48%, but they legitimately won the election. Okay. You can also argue Hitler won in 33 also. So, to say Hamas will have no role, well, you can dictate that, but I'm not sure the Palestinians will all agree with that. And again, subtitle there on 13, subtopic, Gaza's new leaders will commit to peaceful coexistence with their neighbor. As Morgan Freeman's character said in The Dark Knight, good luck. 14, a security guarantee will be provided by regional partners to ensure that Hamas and other Gaza factions comply with their obligations and that Gaza ceases to pose a threat to Israel or its people. It would be really good to know, on 14, which regional partners we're talking about. Is it, Qatar, who the Israelis bombed? Although they did sort of apologize for that. Is it Turkey? Is it Egypt? We don't know. 15, the U.S. will work with Arab and other international partners to develop a temporary international stabilization force that will immediately deploy in Gaza to oversee security in the Strip. And this force will develop and train a Palestinian police force, so on. Composed of troops from where? Blue helmets, so they can just go in there and fall and not get up like they always do. Where will these troops come from? Mr. Trump, please don't let them be American troops. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Mr. Trump. Number 16, Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. Why would Israel want to do that? Again, it's a hellhole. And the IDF will gradually hand over territory it currently occupies. So, okay. That sounds good. 17, if Hamas delays or rejects this proposal, the above points will proceed in terror-free areas. And I circled terror-free with a big red question mark. What's a terror-free area? Look, I know that, Witkoff came up with this, right? Mr. Trump's Middle East envoy. Steve Witkoff came up with this. And, I know it's left intentionally vague to leave a lot of negotiating and wiggle room. I understand that. Again, kudos and credit to them for trying to do something instead of, like the Biden administration building a floating bridge that lasted 17 days. So they're trying to actually do something, but, it's vague in order to allow wiggle room for negotiation, but sometimes it's so vague it almost seems meaningless. I don't even know what a terror-free area means or if such a thing exists in Gaza. And if Hamas or delays or rejects this proposal, but again, there's no time frame given. Again, I said earlier, Mr. Bush, oh my God, sorry, Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump said yesterday, September 30th, that they had 3 or 4 days. So it looks like they've got to the end of the week, but again, maybe he'll give them more time. 18, Israel agrees not to carry out future strikes in Qatar. Yeah, I mean, Qatar is one of our allies, and yes, I know people are all over. There's a lot of bad blood toward Qatar because they help the Muslim Brotherhood, and they also are sort of tacitly allied with Turkey, which rubs a lot of people the wrong way. But I don't know. I always wondered about that. I mean, Israel struck them because they said they were still harboring some Hamas guys. Does that give Israel the right to bomb any country in the world? I mean, what if there's a Hamas guy selling cigarettes in New York, of which I think there probably are some? I mean, I don't think the Israelis want to bomb New York. Look, I understand it, but, bombing another American ally, maybe a bombing too far. So, yeah, they agreed not to do it anymore. So, thank you. 19, a process will be established to de-radicalize the population. Again, I've already went over that. I've been studying Islam for many, many years, going back to when I first learned Arabic, when I was enlisted in the Army during the Reagan administration. And, as I've said before, I've done a lot of work and academically and professionally and on this topic. And this idea that, let me continue with this, de-radicalize the population. This will include an interfaith dialogue aimed at changing mindsets and narratives. Pardon my skepticism. Some years ago, when I was working for special operations folks as a civilian analyst, I was sent to a big conference in the D.C. area involving state and a number of 3-letter agencies, and we were discussing some stuff about what was then still the Iraq War and occupation. And I was asked to go because my specialty, which was, of course, Islamic Messianic movements, was important because there were a number of these cropping up in Iraq at the time. Excuse me. And so I was sitting at this conference, we all did our presentations, and there's this big discussion, and I wound up sitting next to a State Department guy. I had to shower afterwards. But very nice suit, wingtip, two-tone shoes. I mean, really, I thought I was having a flashback to the 60s. But he was blathering on about, and I'm sorry, I know there are good people in the State Department, but my experience with them has always been they're just supercilious boobs with Ivy League degrees who think they know far more than they actually do. So, case in point, this fellow was going on and on about, and if I remember correctly, a lot of it was in response to what I had talked about these Islamic Mahdist Messianic movements and how their connection is with jihad, and how that intrinsically comes out of Islam, and particularly, of course, in the case of Iraq and Iran, which are predominantly 12 or Shia. Those sort of things are not unexpected, shall we say? And he basically kept going on and on about, there's really no religious dimension to this sort of thing, and any violence in Iraq. Mind you, this was like 2010, 2011. Any violence in Iraq was, socioeconomic, political. It had nothing to do with religion. So when he managed to take a breath from his bloviating, I said, "Have you ever read the Quran?" And his response, I kid you not, was, "I don't have to." And I said, "Well, there's your answer, fishbulb." Actually, I didn't say that. That's a Bart Simpson line. I actually said, "Well, that explains a lot, doesn't it?" So, interfaith dialogue. Interfaith dialogue does nothing to solve these sorts of problems, because the problem's in Islam. The problem is the Quran and Hadiths, which lionize violence and allow, not just allow and lionize, but promote violence if you read the text literally. And so the only way to de-radicalize the population, we don't need interfaith dialogue. The Muslims need to get together. Maybe they can have Sunni Shia dialogue, if you want to talk about interfaith, and say, hey, these texts where it says behead people that oppose the prophet, how about we not take those literally? So, That's an in-house argument. So this interfaith dialogue stuff and de-radicalization won't work the way that they're positing it. Yeah, thanks, Steve Witkoff, but you're a good guy, but you're proving you don't know much about Islam. Number 20, when Gaza's redevelopment has been advanced and the PA reform program, Palestinian Authority again, West Bank, has been implemented, the conditions may be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian statehood. So there you go, dangling the carrot out here. Mr. Trump might agree to Palestinian state if you do all the other 19 things earlier. So, and again, some of them are possible, but this whole de-radicalization of Hamas thing, can't ask a zebra to change its stripes. And number 21, and final. The U.S. will establish a dialogue between Israel and the Palestinians to agree on a political horizon for peaceful coexistence. So that's just more of the same. Which American president has not tried to do that? Going back to, I don't know what, who? Jimmy Carter? Harry Truman? No, I don't think Harry Truman was involved. But we've been doing this for 40 or 50 years, and it's made some progress on the margins, but yeah. Anyway, so that's my take on the 21-point plan of the Trump administration for dealing with the Gaza war, as it says, ending the Gaza war and creating a pathway to a Palestinian state. So anyway, that's my take, and I hope that's somewhat helpful. And if you have any comments, please let me know, or reach out for me at my website, and you can send me messages there. Thanks.